Principle 1 of effective thinking states that we have a purpose in life, to achieve goals. It implies that absolutely everything we do is in pursuit of a specific result, even though we are not always aware of what our objectives are.
We are constantly pursuing goals, trying to achieve something. If we always have an objective in mind, how come we're not aware of these intentions? I am not conscious, for example, of what my objective is when sitting in front of the TV, doing nothing. What objective am I pursuing then when I relax, listening to music or watching the sunset with nothing in my mind?
Or you always have something in your mind, but you simply don't notice these thoughts. You see, your mind never rests. It's always active, producing thoughts and feelings of some kind. Most of your thoughts, however, are subconscious, so you simply are not aware of them. At any given time, you have several thoughts competing with each other for your attention. You only become aware of the thoughts that prevail. And, well, this particular thought creates a feeling and the intention to execute the actions to fulfill this intention. And this is the objective you are pursuing at this particular time. When you relax in front of the television or watching a sunset, it's because you have created this intention with your very thoughts. You are not aware that this is your objective because it was all generated at subconscious levels, but it was with your own thoughts that you prompted these actions. Following the same process, your subconscious makes you work towards objectives such as preparing well for an important appointment or missing the appointment, have a pleasant evening with your wife or have a confrontation with your wife, fill in your saving account with money or incurring more debts. With your thoughts, you are constantly creating either your successes or your problems. But you are oblivious to this because these thoughts are processed beyond your level of awareness.
Yes, but if we do these things subconsciously, that is, without thinking, then we are not really exercising free will, are we?
Yes, we are. And this is a fundamental concept in developing mind power. Let's go back for a moment to the example we used before about catching a tennis ball. Someone throws a tennis ball to you. What you experience at that moment is only an intention, a thought to catch the ball. But it is your inner mind who executes the required actions. Extend your arm, clench your fist, correct your body posture. For all these subconscious actions to be executed, you needed your intention first. Your inner mind needed your instructions. And these instructions, your thoughts, are your free will. With your decisions, you are constantly exercising free will. But you do it so naturally and automatically that most of the time you simply don't see the connection between your free will and your actions. Your mind is constantly executing mind power. It does it because it is constantly following the instructions you feed to it through your thoughts. But as the old saying goes, if you only use this power for good and not for evil, if you could only use this mind power to generate success, money, love, health, instead of problems, you use mind power and free will to catch a tennis ball. You also use mind power and free will to achieve everything else. Destiny, fate. It's so compelling at times to believe that events in our lives occur as if they had been predetermined. Since the dawn of reasoning, we have observed how things tend to go in a certain direction, as if an invisible hand is taking us in a certain way, indeed, shaping our lives. During today's episode, we will be addressing interesting and profound questions about what destiny is and what power we have to control it.
Does destiny exist? Are our lives predetermined? And if they are, what would be the purpose in trying to change anything?
The issue of destiny or fate has always been surrounded with mysticism, even in the scientific world. During the last 300 years, the view changed from believing that our destiny was already set in advance in the world of our molecules to the belief that it is our own observation that brings reality into action. Traditionally, the most accurate way to make predictions about our personalities and about our future has been with psychological tests. One such instrument, for example, measures the tendency of a person to have an introvert or an extrovert type personality. An introvert, for example, is predicted to take life matters more seriously, to be more reliable, to honor accepted ethical standards more fully. An extrovert is expected to have more friends, be bolder in social interactions, present as more easygoing, and act more impulsively. But these results are far from being 100% accurate, even with the occupational tests, those used to screen individuals with the right qualities and skills for specific jobs. Results are only approximate. So although predictions... Scientific instruments can predict destiny to a certain degree, but simply by resorting to our observations and common sense, we can also predict the future of a person with some degree of certainty.
If it is possible to predict the future to some degree, does that mean that we are bound by destiny?
No. Although this ability to anticipate life patterns has contributed to the widespread belief in destiny, reality shows us a different picture. But to understand why, we need to go back into evolution. Your destiny and the fate that your life takes is in essence not different to the fate of all living organisms. And there have been two main theories regarding the destiny of life. The older one was known as the contingency theory. It asserted that evolution does not follow any pre-specific path and that what happens is simply the result of chance. According to this view, if we were to rerun the evolution of life on Earth, we would end up with something completely different to what we see today, a completely unpredictable result. We humans, for example, could be very different or even not exist. We now know that this view of life is not very convincing. Scientists feel a lot more comfortable with what is called the convergence theory. It asserts that given similar environmental conditions, species tend to evolve similarly as well, that is, converging towards a particular form. According to this view, if we were to rerun the evolution of life on Earth, we would likely end up with something very similar to what we see around us today, because it's likely that the conditions on Earth would be very similar as well, thus creating life that is also similar. There is powerful evidence supporting this second view of destiny. One such evidence is that different characteristics, for example our eyes, evolved independently in many different species who lived in similar conditions. The use of tools is another example. Different species evolved this skill to cope with similar demands.
If the accepted theory is that we tend to follow certain paths when evolving, doesn't that mean that our lives are predetermined? If we were to rerun the evolution of man and end up being where we are now, doesn't that mean that this is our destiny? That our evolution has already been fixed?
Not at all. Although there is some truth to the fact that we tend to follow certain definite paths, for example, develop certain lifestyles, life follows the law of probabilities. To understand why, we need to look more closely into two important features of the evolution of life. Life's non-deterministic nature and the uncertainty principle. It was Isaac Newton who first attempted to convince people that if we had a machine sufficiently powerful to make the necessary calculations regarding the location and movement of all particles in the world and the universe, we would be able to predict their future positions and, in theory, calculate the precise state of the universe at any time. This deterministic view endorsed the notion that the fate of the world is set in advance, and that if we had the right technology, the future could be accessed. Our destiny, according to this notion, is already written and contained in the intricate world of particles, a view that was later endorsed also by Albert Einstein. What Isaac Newton proposed was very interesting. Imagine a game of snooker. If you could calculate the exact position and velocity of the ball that you hit, you should also be able to calculate where all the balls will end up after your shot. Now, replace the snooker balls with all universal particles. If you knew the position and the velocity of all these particles, then you could predict the state of the universe at any time in the past or in the future. Your destiny, according to this view, is written here in the positions of the particles that make your body and everything else that exists. But this view was then very seriously challenged by quantum physicists, and in particular by the discovery of the uncertainty principle. The uncertainty principle states that it's impossible to measure both the position and the momentum of a particle completely accurately at the same time, thus making predictions about future events impossible. It is impossible to calculate future events at molecular levels, and it is just as impossible at our human level. We simply cannot predict with complete accuracy our fate or our destiny. But an even more profound principle threw a final knockout punch at the notion of predictability. Quantum theory dictates that when we observe quantum objects, the smallest discrete physical units, they do not move along a well-defined path. We can only estimate the probability, that is, how likely it is that the observed object will be detected in a given spot at a future time. No matter how accurately you calculate the velocity and position of a snooker ball, you can never precisely anticipate its destination or the destination of the other balls. The destiny of a particle cannot be predicted, and this compels us to acknowledge that the future is unpredictable at all levels of existence, including at our human level.